Brinquedo is a now-defunct animation studio that was best known for producing straight-to-video releases that were designed to ape off the success of theatrical animated movies made by larger companies. Their target was usually Disney or Pixar, and over a year ago now, I made a video covering some of those movies. This time we're going to take a look at their attempts at ripping off their other main target, Dreamworks. I've always found Dreamworks' catalog to be one of the most interesting out of every mainstream animation studio, just because of the sheer range in quality and how often they go up and down. Within 1 year, they can release a classic that's pretty much universally loved, and what's widely considered to be one of the worst mainstream animated movies ever made.
Oh, wow! Wow!
Let's see what Video Brinquedo took out of it. So, the first of Video Brinquedo's Dreamworks clones is Little Bee, which was released in either 2007 or 2009. Just like with Plump Fiction, it depends on the source. To capitalize on the success of Bee Movie starring Jerry Seinfeld.
Buzz, 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 buzz. I know what I'll do. I'll pollinate these flowers.
Bee Movie is already kind of a meme in and of itself. I don't think it's the worst thing in Dreamworks' library, it's more just the fact that an animated courtroom drama about a bee suing humans for taking honey and also basically falling in love with a human woman not only exists, but received a wide release being marketed as a mainstream family movie and was relatively successful. Little Bee takes a few elements from Bee Movie, like it being about bees, for one. The character design is sort of similar. There's also a trial at one point, and I guess honey is involved somehow, but really the plot seems to more closely resemble that of Dreamworks' first movie, Ants. It's about an oppressive bee society where every bee is assigned to a particular bee role, and any bee who doesn't want to fulfill their bee role is viewed as an outcast. Our two hero bees are Beanard, a soldier bee who really wants to be a chef bee.
It's just, I can't stop. I gotta make honey. I'm good at it. And I'm not gonna stop until the whole world knows how good.
And Beauty, a chef bee who really wants to be a soldier bee. Okay, I'm gonna stop doing that now. She does this incredibly annoying cheer thing in basically every scene she's in.
That's right. Nail the bullseye on the fly. Uh-huh. Woohoo. Uh-huh. Woohoo. Uh-huh. That is pretty. Uh-huh. Ooh-hoo. Uh-huh. Ooh-hoo.
There's also kind of a third main character, this princess. Her presence in the movie is very strange. There's a point around halfway through the movie where it randomly becomes a musical for about 5 minutes. She just shows up and joins in partway through one of the songs. This goes completely unacknowledged by the other characters, and then at the end of the song they suddenly start acting like she's been their friend the whole time. Even though earlier dialogue by this character made it very clear that they did not know each other before this point.
Wow, that girl bee has incredible aim. She's way better than most soldiers. And I'm pretty sure that's Beanard, who never does what he's supposed to.
Anyway, the main conflict is that the guy who's assigned to the role of being head chef is pretty terrible at his job, so the humans who own the bee farm that their hive is part of decide that their hive isn't worth keeping and threaten to destroy it. And you can probably already see where the plot is heading. Beanard. Ugh, these names. Anyway, Beanard follows his dream or whatever and makes honey, and the humans are convinced not to destroy the hive because his honey is a lot better. And despite the 40-minute requirement in order to be a feature already being met at this point, for some reason, this one time Video Brinquedo decided to actually make the movie a little bit longer. This one random-ass soldier guy wasn't too fond of Beanard's actions, and he ends up on trial, but don't worry, because every character who was previously a traditionalist does a full 180 and decides they're now in full support of him, and he gets off. You know, if it was that easy to change people's minds, it kind of makes you wonder how this system stayed in place for so long. They all celebrate by doing that annoying cheer thing.
Oh, yeah!
They break the fourth wall, and the movie ends at exactly 54 minutes. Just a few other random things that I want to point out before moving on. For one, as if the fact that Veronica Taylor does the exact same voice that she does for Ash Ketchum when voicing the main character wasn't distracting enough. I may not be able to prove this because information on this one is a bit limited. IMDb doesn't even have a cast listed. but it seems like she also voices half the background characters.
As a drone, you might be fortunate enough to date the princess. No. Do you think Beanard would let us into his cooking class?
There's also a couple of points where the animation gets so lazy that they just still frame and move the background, or the crowd is composed of a bunch of blank models standing completely still, and it looks terrible and honestly kinda creepy, even by Video Brinquedo standards. Finally, bees die after they sting, and several characters in this movie sting the humans while they're attacking the hive.
Oh man, that hurts! I'm gonna bring down your whole hive!
Maybe so, but not today! For the queen!
So I have to assume that at some point in the movie, the general guy and Bee Yuti were replaced by new characters that look and sound identical to them. I mean, why not? It wouldn't even be the only time within this movie that Video Brinquedo reused models that they used for main characters. Alright, I think Kung Fu Panda is bar none Dreamworks' best franchise. It has much of the best animation, the best character design, and the best storytelling they've ever done, and the villains of the first two movies are two of my favorite animated villains ever. In many ways, the little panda fighter is to Video Brinquedo what Kung Fu Panda is to Dreamworks, except replace the word best with worst. This is probably Video Brinquedo's most infamous movie, being the first one that really garnered any attention. The plot is that some alien creature that very vaguely resembles a panda works as a janitor or something at an establishment called the Bear Bar Box, where he's made fun of for not liking fighting and preferring dancing. The owner of the place is tired of the same guy always winning the fights and decides to fight him himself, but because he has a contract that forbids him from doing that, for some reason, he wears a disguise. However, it shrinks in the wash, and because everyone in this world has the collective IQ of a rock, they all think it was the main character, despite it looking and sounding nothing like him. There are a whole lot of awful things that you start to notice very quickly with this movie. I already alluded to the fact that this probably has the worst animation and character design in their entire catalog. The character models are so poorly made that they often contort or even break completely when they change position, and they're so horrendously ugly as well. The designs in Little Bee were more appealing. There are a few really obvious slip-ups in the voice acting.
Lucky he's wearing a mask. That way no one will know who he is when he inevitably bites the dust.
I'll stay here and plot the imminent demise of old Thunderbutt himself, that jerk!
It also probably has the most incompetent sound editing and just editing in general that I've ever seen. Characters will sometimes talk over each other.
Honey, I knew the turnout would be good for this fight, but you should see how many bets I took.
I've never seen so many customers here. I've already made a week's worth of tips.
Sometimes there'll be random clips of audio where they aren't meant to be.
They think I'm someone I'm not, and now I'm stuck being that someone, whether I like it or not.
I think I understand. Now the nice lady likes you because she thinks you're a big champion boxer.
Even simple things like cutting from one shot to the next are screwed up at times. I'm gonna be honest though. I will stand by my opinion that Tiny Robots is probably Video Brinquedo's best movie when being unironic, but The Little Panda Fighter is easily the most entertaining. It's definitely not consistent enough for me to fully recommend as a funny bad movie, but some parts of this movie are really funny. Mainly some bizarre line deliveries or moments where the animation gets particularly janky.
He'll be shaking tonight!
Again!
I thought I was going crazy! Sorry, kid. Ain't that a kick in the head? You see, kid, I guess I really didn't know what you were talking about.
Anyway, the main character likes the attention he gets from everyone thinking he's a champion fighter, but doesn't like that he didn't really earn it. So he basically blackmails the club owner into training him and letting him do the fighting at the next match. There's a training montage with some music that's trying to sound like the Rocky theme, but also trying to sound different enough to avoid copyright issues. But despite that, he still gets his ass kicked in the fight. He has some weird hallucinations during the fight, and I think it's trying to subtly communicate a realization that no matter how hard he tries, he can't force himself to be something he isn't. I think. That, or I'm giving this movie way too much credit, either is possible. Whatever they were doing, it wasn't very well communicated. After the match, there's a reveal, and it's honestly probably the most unironically funny thing to happen in any of these movies. Basically, the club owner reveals that he had absolutely no faith in the main character winning when everyone else did, and as a result he bet against him when everybody else bet for him, and he became extremely rich as a result. This side character, whose name is Grizzlepuss, by the way, figures them out, but too late. The club owner has already skipped town with all the money and handed ownership of the club over to the main character, who turns it into a dance place. So, basically this is a movie about two characters scamming their way to the top and completely getting away with it. Kind of a weird choice for a kids movie, but alright. And then the last line of the movie makes absolutely no sense.
You're yanking my fur again, ain't ya?
In my video on Video Brinquedo's Disney Pixar ripoffs, I talked about a movie called What's Up, Balloon to the Rescue. To my knowledge, most coverage of that movie that exists, whether it be YouTube videos or its IMDb and Letterboxd pages, don't seem to acknowledge the fact that it's actually a sequel to another Video Brinquedo product, Little and Big Monsters. It was also released in 2009, but unlike its sequel, was instead made to capitalize on the Dreamworks film Monsters vs. Aliens. The thing with this one is, there really isn't a whole lot to say. It's probably the most boringly competent out of their catalog. I've mentioned this movie before, way back in my first review, and pointed out that it actually has a relatively conventional plot for a family movie. Basically, these two scientists somehow spread some lie that in the 50s they saved the world from an alien invasion, but then real aliens show up and everyone expects them to take care of it, and they don't actually know what to do. You can probably think of plenty of other media where a character either fakes or accidentally commits a great act, relishes in the success this brings them, but then the lie starts to fall apart and they have to deal with the consequences. And that's just how the rest of this movie goes. They end up being forced to admit that they've never actually dealt with aliens before, and then are forced to deal with them for real. The movie is still really bad, obviously. It has all the issues that every other Video Brinquedo movie has, just not to as extreme a level. There's still plenty of padding.
Country breakfast will be ready in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Country breakfast complete.
But there's no moment quite like the one in Ratatouille where a character takes a solid 2 minutes to walk from one side of the room to the other. The animation's still bad, but it's not like in Little Panda Fighter where the models break and contort with every movement. And the writing's still bad.
Who wants popcorn?
I want some popcorn!
What'd you say there, kid? I can't hear ya!
I said I want some popcorn!
But it's not like in the sequel where they throw in this random-ass Chinese character that only exists for the other characters to make racist jokes about.
He didn't even say anything when I showed him the cookie.
Did you try showing him a fortune cookie? That could work.
Just a side note real quick, I'd recommend looking through the IMDb pages of these movies because you can find some funny stuff. Like for What's Up, every single quote listed is either racism or a made-up one about bodily mutilation. Anyway, I guess there's a few mildly amusing moments, like some scenes where the other patrons at the restaurant in the background are just silhouette clones of the main characters. And there's also this guy who's supposed to be angrily yelling, but he's smiling while he does it.
Good for nothing, kids! These days they walk all over you, even an old popcorn vendor.
But mostly it's just boring. That's all. I've already made note of a few of them, but as I pointed out in my last video on them, for some reason these movies are filled with recognizable voice actors. Why don't you make it a game? How many did you notice? Anyway, if I were to rank the Video Brinquedo movies that I've seen, it would go as follows. The best one is definitely Tiny Robots. Honestly, if someone were to just redo that movie with better production value, it might actually be pretty alright. Next would be The Little Panda Fighter. Most of these movies are just boring, so when one of them actually has some ironic entertainment value, I have to give it some credit for that. Then probably Little and Big Monsters. It's basically just a very conventional family movie, except with a Video Brinquedo level of execution. The next two would probably be Little Bee and Ratatouille. My thoughts on those two are relatively similar to my thoughts on Little and Big Monsters, except Little Bee has worse animation and is also longer, and Ratatouille has about 80 times more padding. Finally, I think the worst one is What's Up, Balloon to the Rescue. A solid eighth of the movie isn't even the movie, and then the rest of it is just nonsense and racism. So, what does that leave? They also have The Little Cars and The Great Race and its sequels, those two 2D animated princess ones, and the Gladiformers duology. Will I ever cover them? Honestly, at this point, probably not. It's difficult to talk about these movies without feeling like I'm repeating myself a bunch, because there's only so much you can say about them. Of course the animation's gonna be bad, of course the story's gonna be a bunch of padded out nonsense.
Oh, Father, I was hoping to find a shell that was more special. You know what I'm trying to say?
And of course they're gonna mostly just be boring. The next time I cover animated ripoffs, assuming that ever happens, I'll probably give some other company a chance to shine.